Hey, everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games on this beautiful F Around Friday. Joining me virtually today is not only Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat reporter, Charlie O'Connor, but we also have Broad Street Hockey's own Kelly Hinkle.
Howdy.
What's going on today, fam?
You guys, I just want you guys to know that Bill didn't tell me we were remote today and I went to the studio. I made it back here.
She did. That happened. I keep saying, like, literally anyone else should be in charge of this, all the, like, logistical stuff, but apparently I'm the only one, so here we are. But luckily, Kelly got home in plenty of time to join us virtually. And, yeah, it's, listen, if I'm in charge, there's going to be issues.
It's today, Friday, baby.
Yeah, it's F Around Friday. And the thing is,
we love you, Bill.
Kelly told me with plenty of notice that she was going to be available today. And they told us on like Monday or Tuesday we were going to be remote. And I never put these two things together. But this is
payback. Yeah, this is payback for me texting you in the middle of Frankie's wedding that I was going to do the show on Monday.
But like I responded and told you to come, and then had no idea that you were going to be there until you showed up on Monday. But nevertheless, here we are on this beautiful F Around Friday, and all week here at PHLY and throughout ALLCITY, it's been a rank week. We were tasked with coming up with a top 10 list of the best Flyers games. And they put together then from that a top 25 list of all the best games, most memorable games in Philadelphia since 1980. Today, since we did most of the, good stuff yesterday, I decided to take it in another direction. We're going to talk about some of the worst games in Flyers history, stuff that just honestly made us the way we are. We often talk about why every Flyers fan we encounter is out of their fucking minds. And honestly, it shouldn't be a question to you. Like, even with the good games we went through, like considering it started in 1980, it's like, oh, well, that's when they stopped winning cups. It's all like, oh, they won a game 6 to force a game 7. And then they lost game 7. Yeah. Like, it was a whole lot of that. Oh, they won a game 7 in the second round. But, those were some pretty good highlights that we've been through. But before we get to the bad stuff, Kelly wasn't able to join us yesterday when we went through the top 10 list. I just wanted to get your thoughts on the top 10 list. Is 2010, like, Game 7 against Boston, that's it, right?
I mean, for us, unfortunately, yeah. Like, that was the pinnacle for us. That was the most fun I've ever had as a Flyers fan that season. And that game was the most fun that I had during that incredibly fun run. Like, there's just, unfortunately, until they win a cup, I don't know how we're topping that one.
It's tough. Like, we talked about the Stanley Cup Game 3 where Giroux wins it in overtime. It's the first Stanley Cup final game in our lifetime, first Stanley Cup final win in our lifetimes. And it's like, it's just like, if they had won, maybe that's number 2 on the list. But since that's it, they win that, they win game 4, and then they lose the next 2. Well, yeah, it was good, but I can't really say it's the most memorable game, even though it's a Stanley Cup final game. And then the other one I wanted to talk to you about, Kelly, was game 6 against the Penguins, the Giroux shift, the hit, the goal. That's Claude Giroux's defining moment. Like,
yeah,
when his number gets retired, that's how his highlight video ends. Like, it's that and then the standing ovation, right?
Yeah, that's kind of, I think, when Giroux cemented himself as like the guy for this generation of Flyers fans. Like, that was the moment where it was like, yes, our guy fucked up their guy, and their guy is supposed to be the best guy in the whole world. This rules. Like, it was.
That was it.
Yeah,
sure. One more thing. I know I just said that was the last thing, but
there's so many things.
2000. This was another. I continued this argument with Gargano this morning, and I need more people on my side because they all chose the 5 overtime game. If you had to like rank them 1, 2, the 5 overtime game in 2000 or Game 6 against the Lightning, Gagne and OT, which is number 1?
No, you were right. And Charlie, I think it was Charlie that made the point on yesterday's show that the 5 overtime game was more of like a sports event than a Flyers fan event. The game, the game 6 is ours. Like that was our game. And so if you're making a list of Flyers games for Flyers fans, like you're correct.
Yeah, it's just like it's an elimination game. It's the conference final versus the semifinal. It's the last home game for Roenick, Recchi, and Leclaire. Like, I don't. That's an epic game. That is an era-defining game for 2 generations, really. Like that, the guys who were around for the pre-2000s and that whole era, and then Simone Gagne, who carries it post-lockout. Like, I don't know. That's like the glue of 2 different eras in my mind. But all right, we've done all this stuff. We've talked about it over the last couple of days. Now it is time to get to some of the worst games in Flyers history. And it being F Around Friday, like I put at the top, like 10 worst. I don't know if there's 10. I don't know if we rank them. I'm just going to talk about some shit moments for us as fans. And let's see if we can relive, go back and erase some of the trauma with laughter.
No, this is group commiseration, to be clear. Like, truly, this is group therapy. We're all going to get through it together. I do want to point something out, though, because Lyndon49, I think, pointed out that no games from the 70s. We were told going into this that it starts in 1980. Yeah. So that was not an unintentional mess up. Like, the 70s games were not applicable for the list. That was the parameters we were given. So really, if we're saying best or worst Flyers games ever, it's really best or worst Flyers games since 1980, because obviously the first Stanley Cup would have been the biggest game ever, to be sure.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, they won 2 cups. They went to 3. They beat the Red Army in 76. Like, all that shit is like that. Those might be the top 3 games in franchise history, but they're all pre-1980. So they were not they were not eligible to make the list. It is what it is.
Someone in the chat asking that I'm not old enough to remember the Bullies. I don't look 60. Knock it off. No, I'm not old enough to remember the Bullies. Jesus Christ.
We were all born in the mid to late. We were all born in the mid to late 80s. We are millennials. Goddamn it.
Yeah, give me a break. Jesus Christ.
So we talked. I just mentioned Game 6 against the Penguins in 2012. Claude Giroux's defining moment. But we got to talk about something that happened. And like, listen, honestly, like 3 games from that series could have been eligible for the list. Like Game 1, the comeback, Danny Briere offsides. Game 3, just a fucking shit show.
Chaos.
Like it was slap shot. Like, it wasn't even hockey. It was slap shot. Like it was nonsense. That Game 3, and then the Shea Weber, I think it was Zetterberg head off the glass. That's when the league was like, shit, we've let this get out of control. We have to start suspending people, because they were only fining people until then. And then it's like, okay, now this is pro wrestling. But anyway, Game 4 of that 2012 series against Pittsburgh, Flyers going for the sweep. They had a 3-2 lead with 4 minutes left in the first period. They lose 10-3. 10-3. Jordan Staal has a hat trick. Staal, Crosby, and Malkin all have 3 points. The thing I remember about this is I went to Xfinity for the first time for this game. Went outside to smoke. Couldn't get back in because it was so packed. But they had the big TV on outside, so we all watched it there in like a light rain. And that was right after the Flyers had that rib place they loved in Pittsburgh, and then they wouldn't serve them like after Game 2 or 3 or something. So they come back to Philly, and Frankie Bomb, his family's restaurant, has amazing ribs. They drop off ribs to the team, and then they go on to lose 10-3, and we're like, they're fucking bad luck ribs, dude. I don't know what to tell you. This is your fault. This is your fault. But that's what I always take away from that Game 4.
And this game was bad, but I definitely would not put this in a top 10 because like they were up 3-0. Yeah, this game was bad. They blow the chance of the sweep, then they lose Game 5, and then you start thinking, oh God, are they going to blow this whole thing? Especially given how fun the first 3 games were. But they win the series, and this then just kind of becomes a wow, they really choked that game 4 away. That was bad, rather than being something that you're actually angry about. So like this was a bad game, but going by what else we have in this outline, there are so many worse games in this one.
Yeah, this is a bad game that at this point you can laugh at, because of if they had lost the series, like no one's laughing. But because they didn't, it's kind of like, you idiots. How did you lose 10-3 when you were winning?
10-3? No, it's
I know.
You very much just get to go LOL Briz. I don't know, man.
Yeah, right.
We have an insane goalie. Like, yeah. But I think it also, like, games 4 and 5, losing those and losing game 4 10-3. Like, really, how necessary that Giroux shift was in game 6. Like, yeah, okay, they win in 6. Oh, it wasn't that bad. Like, they held them off, but they're up 3-0. And if that game goes a different way, suddenly you're blowing a 3-0 lead and you're going
and you're going
7.
to Pittsburgh. You're going to Pittsburgh too.
You're going to Pittsburgh for game 7, and it's still Crosby and Malkin. Like, they're better than whoever we have. Like, you know,
Crosby, Malkin.
Yes, this is them in 2012. Like, so it was it like makes game 6, I think, more important. But now you just kind of get to look back and go, they gave up 10 goals in a playoff game, in a series that they were up 3-0. They had not lost. They scored 8 goals in games 2 and 3, and then they give up 10. It just absolutely freaking silly. But now I guess these might be, they're way up there. If we were going to rank them, 2 games against the Devils in 2000. We'll start with game 5. They lose to the Devils 4-1 at home. The Flyers came in leading the series 3-1. Chance to close it out. And for all the people who are always, oh, if Lindros doesn't come back, we would have won. Why didn't they win this one? They're at home against the Devils, leading 3-1 in the series. Why not put them away here? No, you lost 4-1. They needed Lindros back. But classic Brodeur game. Stopped 20 of 21. Yeah, gives up one. Great game. 21 shots on goal in a closeout game at home. The Flyers were able to record.
This was the embarrassing one. Like out of the 3 games they lost to lose the series, this was the embarrassing one because you had it. You had it. Like you'd won 3 straight games. You had all the momentum. You're at home. This was the game you had to win, and they obviously lose it. They just, and if I remember, I mean, I was very young. I guess I was 11 when this game happened. But I remember thinking like they just don't have it tonight, and it's weird. And you're like, given how well they played the previous 3 games, how do they just not have it? Like, do they just think that well, we got 3 shots, we'll get it done? Like, this was your shot. It was, and you know, it's the other 2 games were competitive, but this one was just like they just laid an egg at the worst possible time. And even though the 4-1 score doesn't seem, you know, embarrassing at first glance, given the opportunity in front of them, like this is the game you look back on and you say, what were you even doing?
Yeah.
Was this, or was it game 7 the first time they broke out Kate Smith and Lauren Hart duet?
Ooh, I do not.
I don't remember.
I think it was this one, but it might have been game 7. Like that would make a ton of sense. But I know I'm almost positive it was this series in one of these 2 games. And of course, after they lose this game, Lindros comes back for game 6, scores, in my mind, twice. I was convinced for years that the first goal Lindros scored that was taken off the board because it went in after the buzzer, I was convinced for years there was still time on the clock. And then, of course, you know, YouTube comes around and you can find it. It was like a second and a half, 2 seconds after, like, shouldn't have counted. But still, I believe he scored twice in that game, and they only score the 1 goal, Lindros, but it was all his fault to set up a game 7. And this is, maybe if not for the Blackhawks game, we'll obviously get to that at some point. Maybe the low point, like the worst game in franchise history
of my life. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Like Lindros gets knocked the fuck out. You officially blow the 3-1 lead, lose game 7. That's it. Patrick Elias scores with 2.5 minutes left in the third. It's 1-1 all the way to all right. Game 7 going overtime. Oh no, shit, they win. Fuck.
They outshot the Devils 27-18. Like this game is not a game where like they didn't show up. And the fact that they kept pushing even after Lindros gets essentially like dragged off the ice, like that could have shell shocked them, and they kept pushing. It's just they were facing one of the best goalies of the era, and they couldn't beat him.
This is what makes that game 5 so bad. Exactly. Is that this like the only reason Lindros came back is because you couldn't close it out. And if they had closed it out, our entire lives could be different. Like everything could be different. And instead, like the worst thing ever happened.
That's game 5. Like as bad as 7 is, like game 5, the way you lost all that, like that's franchise altering. Like there's no Stevens hit if there's no game 7. Like, who knows? Yeah. Maybe Lindros comes back for the final and then they fucking win and it's a whole different world. Like, Jersey did go on to win this cup. Who'd they beat? Dallas, I think. God damn it.
They beat Dallas,
I hadn't even thought of that until just now, Kelly. Like, if they just win that game 5.
All they had to do was win it.
God damn it.
Who knows? His whole life. Like,
there's a good chance.
He's a war criminal. Like, everything could have changed if they had just won that friggin' game.
So here's one thing I want to bring up, because I was refreshing my memory about this season. And oh my God, like this season from June through Lindros getting stretchered off the ice, like this was 2 decades worth of awful compressed into like 13 months. It was so like, okay. And just like, there was just so much shit. Like it kicks off. I'm just going back through. It kicks off with something truly terrible that happens in July of 1999 when Dmitry Tertizhny dies in a boating accident. So it's like, okay, like you're losing an exciting young prospect in the most tragic way possible. So like you have that happen. Then you have the head coach, Roger Nielsen, gets cancer, and you have that whole thing where he's recovering from cancer and then isn't allowed to come back. And like the organization is fighting with the cancer-stricken coach. So that's going on. They trade Brindamore for Primo. Lindros and this had started the previous season, but it escalates this year. He starts openly feuding with Bob Clark because Clark starts calling him out for the toughness on the concussions. You know, the previous season, they almost let the guy die because they misdiagnosed the lung. And this just becomes the two just taking shots at each other. They stripped the C off Lindros this season. Like there was just so much stuff. And then somehow this team keeps winning until it ends the way it ends. Like this was in this like 14-month period, this was like a lifetime's worth of crap.
How did we make it through that? Like, how are we still fans of this hockey team after?
Can you imagine Twitter? Can you imagine if Twitter existed during this season?
We wouldn't have made it.
I don't even want to think about what that would be like, because like, man, think about like the Claude Giroux defenses now. Like, it's just like, yeah, he's better than you think he was. You know, back then it was like, yeah, Lindros, he's a little bitch. Like,
yeah, right.
Like, no, man, he just keeps getting hit in the head.
No, they almost want to die in a bathtub. No big deal. What's his problem? Just get
out. He's got a punctured lung. He's got 3 concussions. Like, I don't know. It seems as if he just has some really, really bad luck. Like, I cannot imagine what the Twitter wars would have been like back then. But yeah, that's Jesus.
I was in the AOL hockey chat at the time because I'm a real one, and I can tell you it wasn't great. Yeah,
I remember
it wasn't great.
This was a horrible. Why did I come up with this idea? I'm mad about shit. I'm mad about shit from 25 years ago, and it's like a beautiful Friday in July. Before we get to some of the rest of this list, I got to tell you about a few of our absolutely outstanding sponsors, starting with my friends at TrueMark Financial Credit Union. I tell you all the time about the different benefits of TrueMark, but you know, I think a lot of people might just be a little hesitant to switch out of their big bank, but TrueMark wants you to know switching couldn't be easier. from bank to credit union. It's super easy. You can go online, or you can visit one of their, I believe, 24 locations in the Philadelphia area. You will be happy you made the switch. And one of the reasons, it's the ownership structure. It's a very simple thing to think about. Banks, they're for-profit institutions owned by shareholders. Their primary goal, is generating profit for their shareholders, while credit unions, well, they're not-for-profit financial cooperatives owned by their members. And if you live in Bucks, Chester, Delaware, Montgomery, or Philadelphia counties, you're eligible to join. And the member benefits include great rates, lower fees, and personalized service. Who doesn't love personalized service? Like financial advice, you can find advisors to provide personalized financial planning and expertise, and learn about goal setting for long-time financial security. I'm a big fan of what they have going on over at TrueMark. I've told you many times, I am financially illiterate, and they've helped me just with a lot of the goal setting, long-term financial planning, just really drilling home in your head what you have to be paying attention to. I think you should make the switch to TrueMark, and TrueMark Financial is federally insured by the NCUA as an equal opportunity lender. For more information, visit truemark.com/PHLY. And while we're here, I got to tell you, oh, damn it, I have my glasses over there, and that's too far away. I got to tell you about my friends at Shady Rays. You got to get ready for the season with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Look at that. Look at that. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company.
An assist from the best.
Yes, great assist from the wife there. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. I haven't always been the biggest fan of polarized shades. Sometimes they can mess with your eyes, especially maybe when you're driving, you're looking at the nav screen or something, your phone screen, they can mess up. But I'm reading this copy off of my laptop right now, and guess what? Not screwing with my eyes at all. And Shady Rays has hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair for you. And exclusively right now for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code PHLY for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people at shadyrays.com, code PHLY. That was very funny. I was like, "What? Why is she coming in here?" And just hands me my sunglasses. I was like, "Oh, way to go!" So let's get back to the list. 2000 was what a ridiculous goddamn year. Now we have to talk about something fun now. November 1st, 2013, at the Wells Fargo Center. Yes, the Flyers lose 7-0 to the Capitals. But over the course of this game, they save their season with an incredible line brawl that culminates in Ray Emery's absolute shit kicking of Braden Holtby. Following this game, they go 10-4-2 over the next month, and they eventually make the playoffs.
I would also like to remember for a second the subplot of this game being that current Pro Hockey Writers Association president Frank Saravalli giving Ray Emery the 3rd star because he beat up Braden Holtby.
Oh my God.
The best part about that was how little Braden Holtby wanted to do with that fight. Like, he did not want to do it. He knew what was going to happen. And he just had to do it.
In any other context, that's like, ooh. But it's hockey, so you're allowed. And just the best part of that is Holtby being like, no. And Emery going, cover up, bro.
Like I don't care.
I'm coming.
I don't care.
You better cover up. Like, that's all. Just like, get your hands up. I just had to include this one because I got called a goon this morning for including the 419 penalty minutes game on our list. And I'm looking at myself. I'm looking at myself in the camera going, yeah, I mean,
you kind of am.
That is what I'm going for, I think. Yeah,
that is absolutely
I think
the
you
look.
nailed it. Yeah, shout out VG for that one.
Yeah, I would say this one definitely would not make like a top 10 because look, it's obviously bad they lost 7-0. And I guess if you are someone who is very anti-fighting, this would be an embarrassing game, because it's like the only good thing about a good thing is that Ray Emery beat the crap out of a guy who didn't want to fight. However, I would say that most Flyers fans, despite the fact this is a 7-0 game, look back on this one pretty fondly, because you have the Emery fight, and then you have the fact that they turn around their season right after it. Whether the Emery fight was the reason or whether that was just like random chance, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is that after this game, they played better. So this may have been a bad game in isolation, but I don't think any fan would call this a bad game looking back.
No. In fact, we got more than one suggestion of putting this on the other list, the best games list, when I was soliciting answers for that one. And I was just like, they did lose 7-0. So I wanted to include, and I just wanted to be able to talk about something that's more funny than like tragic, as the 2000 season, just was absolutely fucking heartbreaking.
All
right.
Now we move on to maybe the most embarrassing playoff series loss of my lifetime.
Yeah.
This one was bad. Awful.
The Flyers set a record in the 2002 playoffs. They lose the game. They lose the series in 5 to the Ottawa Senators. They score 2 goals. 2. They won game 1. They won game 1, 1-0 in overtime. And I believe they scored 1 goal in game 5. And that was it.
That was it.
We're going to look at game 4 against the Senators, a 3-0 loss. Their third straight 3-0 loss in the series to fall to 3-1. Absolutely insane. But I'm fairly certain that this game 4 is the game where Cechmanek came out of his net and just started yelling at the fucking team.
Right,
Poor Cechmanek. This
was just this might have been the low point. At least, I don't know, because the Lindros stuff was so low as well of this era. But you think back, so they get shut out 3 straight games. They go out as underwhelmingly as really humanly possible in the series. In the midst of that, you have Cechmanek turning on the skaters. You have the entire team turning on Bill Barber. Like this was sheer embarrassment on all levels. Like this was an organization in absolute chaos, and the vibes were as toxic as they could possibly get.
Everything basically from game 5 against the Devils in 2000, like really everything after the Stanley Cup final, like after they beat the Rangers in 97 up until like that 2004 run created a situation where we get to look back on those teams and those players fondly. And it's like everything from the final series of 97 up until like 03 was an embarrassment. Like an absolute, like an underwhelming, underachieving embarrassment. And they were able to erase it all in 04, at least somewhat, by having the playoff run and by having that series that they had. But God, this one, the back-to-back Ottawa series in 02 and 03 were pretty much as bad as it gets. Like just embarrassing.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like, for obvious reasons, newer Flyers fans think that this is the worst it's ever been and the organization has never been this low. But oh no, baby, we got real low before. We got real low before.
I guess they were making the playoffs, but they were finding ways to lose in embarrassing ways and just finding ways to basically organizationally shit on themselves in public on a yearly basis.
No, Kelly, you and I got in that conversation on Twitter the other day with how the organization became complacent and everything. And it's like, they weren't complacent. They were poorly run. And they've been a poorly run franchise for my whole life. But up until 2006, they were able to outspend their problems. It's
exactly.
But then the playoffs would happen, and they were more often than not fucking embarrassed. There's going to be a game later on that we talk about from this time frame that was like, I think they lost like 8-0 or 6-0 to the Sabres in an elimination game. Like, they were a disgrace because they were cup contenders, and then the playoffs would come, and like Charlie said, they'd shit all over themselves.
Yes. And yeah, like, no organization shoots for mediocrity. Like, that's not what they're doing. No one's actively making that decision. What we've witnessed for the last 20 years of our lives is an organization actively trying to be really, really good and just failing miserably at it. Arguably, that's worse than shooting for mediocrity and getting there. But yeah, like they've been trying real hard to win Stanley Cups. They just don't know what they're doing. So hopefully the new guys can figure it out.
Yeah, I just think of like I think you should leave sketch in the parking lot where the one dude's yelling at him like, "Don't you know how to drive?" He's like, "No, I don't. No, I don't." Like, that's who's been running the organization. Like, Don't you know? Like, are you complacent? No, I'm stupid. Like,
oh my god,
that's straight up what's been going. I just don't know what I'm doing. But that 0-2 series was absolute. Like, that was. Oh yeah, you think you're better off without Lindros, huh? Oh, you scored 2 goals in 5 games.
2 goals. Somehow they won a game.
1-0 in overtime. Absolutely. And I'll never forget also from that 0-2 series, Bush started game 5. They lose 2-1 in overtime, but at least they got one. You know, they scored. They ended the shutout streak. 2 goals in 5 games. Unbelievable. We have to go to a game from this past season.
This is bold, but I do think that you can make a case for it being one of the worst in recent memory, to be sure.
Yeah.
So the Flyers had lost 7 straight. They go in. It's like, all right, man, we got the Habs. We can just right this ship and figure out a way to get into the playoffs. Still kind of write our own ticket here if we just right the ship. No. They go into Montreal.
The opposite of that.
They go into Montreal and not only lose their 8th straight game to take the streak to 0-6-2, they lose 9-3 to the team that drafted what, 5th or 6th this year? Like, it's a bad team. It is a bad team. And of course, I think the highlight of this one, it's like Ersson, 5 goals on 17 shots, Fedotov 4 on 13, combining for a 700 save percentage. I'm told that's bad. Jamie Drysdale -6, Nick Seeler -5. That's as bad as it can get. When you lose by 6 and you're -6, that's one of the worst. I know when we talk about plus minus, like overall throughout a season, first of all, like in my head, everyone is somewhere between +10 and -10. So it's like, what does this really tell you when everyone's stat is the same?
Right.
But in an individual game, to be -6, you played horrible. I know most goals are flukes, and like, I am as anti plus minus as you can be. If you're -6 in a single game, you were fucking terrible.
I have to say, like, look at Ivan Fedotov becoming a legend before he even really starts here. He's already on the worst games list. Good job, buddy.
Good for him.
Geez. No, the only game I could equate this to when we're talking about defensive pairings just being terrible. I'm thinking, and this is a game that will come up later in the show as long as we get to it. I'm thinking that Rangers game with the Phil Myers, Travis Sanheim pairing in 2021. Yeah. That's the only game that I can think of when I remember a defensive pairing basically single-handedly torpedoing a game because they were just that bad.
You forget Parent Krychek, don't you, Charles?
Yeah, but they didn't play that much.
That's their
when they were on the ice.
When they were on the ice, everything went fucking wrong. But it was only like 4 minutes a game.
Yeah, they played like 5 minutes every night in that playoff run.
Right.
That might be combined. Like they might have combined for 5 minutes. Like, they might be the. Would it be least efficient or most inefficient pair of all time? Those two, like in 3 minutes, They were somehow -2. Congratulations. You've done it. You've done it. You are the worst of all time. But yeah,
Really
this
bad.
Montreal game, listen, this
good.
like we could just have like every playoff game against the Ottawa Senators on this list, and they'd all probably come ahead of this one. But this one is recency bias, and it's just a reminder of like things were going so well, and then that 8-game losing streak. It was like, what the fuck? Like, what happened? You were in the playoffs. It was going to take exactly this to miss the playoffs. Like, oh yeah, as long as they don't like lose out. And then they came damn close.
And they did. Yeah.
Well, I remember after this game, we had our post-game show and it was a doozy. But the point I made, and I hold to it, and like to the Flyers' credit, they finished the season without embarrassing themselves. Obviously, they didn't make the playoffs, but they turned it around to a degree to the point where they could at least walk out with their heads held high rather than being walking out in sheer embarrassment. But the point I made in the post game after this game was I thought we were past this. Like, yeah. I thought that we were done, that the Flyers were done, like not just losing, but losing in the most embarrassing, fall flat on your face and have everyone just stand around and laugh at you fashion. And for one game, they went back to being the old Flyers. And that was really scary. And again, to their credit, they were able to halt it from there. They were able to not let this turn into 4 straight games where they're losing 6-0, 7-0, which like other Flyers teams might have done. But this was the one night where you're like, oh yeah, like this is the 2021 Flyers.
Yep.
Yeah, it was. I think I thought we were over this. Like, that's one of the reasons it's on the list, at least something to talk about. Like, goddamn, they lose 9-0 or whatever to the Rangers all right, but this is what John Tortorella was here to fix. Right, like, this is the exact thing. I know we're not like competing, but on a nightly basis, we're competing, Yes. They didn't on that night. And it's just like, there's one of them steps back that that just happens during a rebuild, I suppose. Yep. Let's go.
I want to talk about this next one because I think there is a case to be made that like this could be number one.
This is up there.
I just given because I want to set the stage here.
Okay.
This was so the game is game 3 of the Flyers Capital series in 2016. But to me, the reason why this has a case to be number one is because this is the first home game after Ed Snyder passes away. This is supposed to be when the players are giving everything they have to win one for Ed. Like I'm talking like win one for the Gipper kind of shit. And instead, not only do they lose, the entirety of the building shits on itself in the most embarrassing way possible. Like this was a like honestly like kind of ashamed to be a Flyers fan type of game.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing is it starts, there's the moment of silence for Ed Snyder. There's the bracelet light show, the pregame thing. It's a big deal. It was very cool to look at. And then
it was cool at the beginning.
The emotion in the building is palpable. It's intense. It's playoff hockey. Flyers come in down 2-0. It's like, let's just fucking get one, man. Like, let's get one. And they start the game right. Michael Raffl scores 57 seconds in. It's like, yes, this is the one. They are properly motivated. They have the right intensity to at least not embarrass themselves in a playoff series that, especially after Sean Couturier gets injured, it's like, well, what are we going to do? Like, there's our equalizer right there. Maybe he can somehow be physical enough to shut down Alex Ovechkin. Well, no, Alex Ovechkin throws him into the boards. He separates his shoulder. We lose Coots. It's like, all right, now we have no chance. But can we just come on? And
like lose in 5, but win this game.
Yeah.
Instead, after Raffl makes it 1-0 in the opening minute, the Caps score 6 unanswered, and all hell breaks loose. Those bracelets that made for a really nice pregame ceremony and light show became projectiles. To the point where Lou Nolan had to come over the PA and say, like, hey, we're going to get penalized. Stop doing
knock
that.
It off.
And then when people continued to do it, he dropped the classic stay classy Philly line.
It was Ovi and Simmer like begging the crowd to stop it. Yeah.
There's that iconic picture of Ovechkin and Wayne Simmons both having their hands up, like screaming at the fans to stop throwing bracelets. But again, like, and I don't want this to turn into like a shaming the fans thing.
No.
Well, look, fans should not have pelted you guys with bracelets. However, they would not have done it had the Flyers not shit on themselves and lost in the Snyder game 6-1. Like, I don't know. Don't do that.
Yeah, like, again, don't throw things on the ice. Don't
ever do it. Ever.
But
it's not.
It was the perfect storm. Like, it's just one of those things. Like, is it good? No, but sometimes mob mentality, like, people been drinking a little, probably pregame the game. They were really jacked up for this one. It's Flyers playoff hockey. It's Ed Snyder. It's all that. And then they just get crushed by 6 unanswered goals. It was a perfect storm of, hey, they handed me this thing that now has no value to me. I'm going to throw it on the ice. And it was just, that's exactly what happened. It was a bummer all around. And it is one of the, like every single one of these games, we're like, oh yeah, that's a low point. Like it's one of the ways we got here. Like, it's where we are now. It's not 1-to-1, but this is one of the factors of, this is why the fan base is where it is. This is why the organization is where it is. Like, this game, this series, this season, it's way up there.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is not ever going to be number one for me for obvious reasons. But Charlie makes a good point, like, kind of like, globally, societally, this might have been like the lowest point as a Flyers fan in very recent history. So yeah, I mean, I get the point. It was definitely, I wasn't there. I was watching this one on TV, and even watching from home, it was like, oh, stop it. Like, it was just like, it was bad. It was really bad.
It was everyone embarrassed themselves here.
Yes.
Like, I'm not going to stick this just on the fans. The players embarrassed themselves just as much.
No, like this, not to just absolve the fans, but you could have avoided this by just not suck. Like, even if you lose, like, maybe some people throw some shit at the end, like after the game's over. But if you lose this game 3-2 in overtime, it's not like a mutiny of the fans. It's like, Ovechkin scored 8 minutes into overtime. It is what it is. He's the greatest goal scorer ever. We were never going to win the series. But like, this is, oh yeah, man, we were red hot for 57 seconds. And then that was that. Like, well, thank you. Before we get to, I'm sure, what would be number one on this list, let me tell you real quick about our friends at Indeed. Listen, we're all driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. It's to match. And it's to match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. You can also bitch the dizzy... You can also ditch the busy work with Indeed. You can use it for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites. By leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. Just go to Indeed.com/AllCity right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. And while we're here, I don't know how often I tell you, You need to become a diehard, damn it. That's right. Go to allphly.com and sign up to be a diehard because the benefits are endless. You get so much extra when you sign up to be a diehard. I mean, first of all, for the price, if it was just Charlie O'Connor's premium content, that would be enough right there. But we also bring in Alex Appleyard. I call him now our foreign correspondent. He scouts and reports on all the goings-on from the Flyers' European prospects and all that. But you get all of the premium content from our entire roster. The Phillies, the Flyers, the Sixers, the Eagles, the Union, all of that. You also get access to our Discord so you can go on and yell at Charlie, and he answers. It's not like Twitter where it's, I can just block you. No, you're coming to our place of business and yelling at us so you can actually we have to deal with you. It's the way it is. With the Discord, you also get a discount on merch and events, as well as a free shirt. So why not go get your Mitchkov Mania shirt? Sign up at allphly.com. Get two birds stoned at once. Get that free shirt. Make sure you're supporting Mitchkov Mania. And that's that. Become a diehard. Do it. All right. Back
Bill,
to
I
the
think
list.
it's time to bitch the Dizzy. Yeah. That was so good.
Could you put that on a shirt? That could go on a
Disney
shirt.
Work.
Yeah.
I said it, and I was like, it was coming out of my mouth. I was like, no, this is right. And then I said it. I was like, no, that was incorrect.
That's definitely not what I meant to say.
And the laughter was delayed just long enough. I was like, did I hear it right? No, start laughing. No, I
was muted. That's why you didn't hear me laugh.
All right. Anyway, now this is number one, right? 2010 Cup Final, Game 6. We all know how it happened. Flyers lose in overtime on Patrick Kane's bad angle goal. And it really, on the face of it, that's bad. Game 6 at home. Jeff Carter has the chance to win it with minute 30 left in the third. Golden opportunity from Richards and Giroux. Just hits the goalie right in the chest. I just went back and watched it. It was a pretty decent save, technically, but shelf that shit. That shit. You're a sniper.
You have one job, Jeff. You're a goal scorer. Do that.
But really, what makes it so bad is you go back to the 2007 draft. The Flyers are 22-60. Lose the lottery to the fifth worst team in Chicago. Chicago drafts Patrick Kane. The Flyers draft JVR. And then that guy, Patrick Kane, he does it. He scores the overtime goal against the Flyers in Philadelphia to end the Cup hopes and extend the streak to, where it is now. That was the last crack we had at it. And we're coming up on 50. 50's a year away. And this was what, 14 years ago. So this started it all. This started the downturn of the franchise.
Your girl was in the building.
You were there.
Enjoy it. So I think I've told the story before, but it's always fun for me to relive this nightmare. So I was sitting way up high on the opposite side of the ice from where the goal was scored. And I was sitting next to a guy from Toronto with his kid who traveled to one Stanley Cup final game every year. He did this with his kid, which sounds fancy as hell. They were very nice. The goal happens. I don't see it. I don't even know what's happening. The Toronto guy goes, sorry about that. And he gets up and leaves. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, what? Sorry about what? What? And then I realized what was happening. And I was like, oh no, that didn't go in. What? And then I watched the cup come out on the ice, and it was terrible. I hated it.
I watched it again this morning just to okay, what were the actual order of events here? And it's just Patrick Kane flying down the ice, and literally no one has any idea. The announcers are like, I don't know. Michael Leighton stopped it. What? Oh no, he scored. It's in. It was just pure fucking confusion. There were, I believe, two people in the building who knew the puck was in. One being Patrick Kane and the other being Michael Leighton. But Michael Leighton was no selling it, hoping maybe there's not an angle. There, it's in. It's in the net.
It's definitely in. Yeah. The fact that it was so inexplicable. This is an underrated part of it. It was so inexplicable that they had to review it. Like
Yeah.
everyone in the building was so like, there's no way that actually could have went in, that they reviewed, like the puck was in the net. Like they're truly like, it had to have went in, and the officials still had to go to the cameras and go to the video because it was like, nah, there's no way he would have given up that weak of a goal. No. It had to have gone through the side of the net, John Leclerc style, right? And there's like, Leighton really was that bad.
That's exactly what I thought. I was like, it must have been, maybe there's a slice in the net and it went through the side like Leclerc's goal on Hasek. Like, that was the only possible explanation. And it was, no, he stinks. That's the explanation.
Should have been Boosh.
It should have been Boosh.
Should have been Boosh.
Fucking that goalie carousel. I swear to God, my entire life is I'm gonna be like on my deathbed, being like, why did we do it this way? Why?
Well, Leighton was so good after Boosh gets hurt against Boston, and he was so good against Montreal, and then game 1 against Chicago happens. It's like, oh, that's.
I mean, the big thing here was that like Boosh was hurt. Like he was back, but he was nowhere near 100%. Yeah. And I think the hope was, and it's not like Boosh was good when he got into games in the series, because he did play at times in the series and he wasn't real good. And it was because he was nowhere near 100%. Leighton was, I think, closer to 100%. He was just bad. And there is an element, like, and this is such a painful game, but I will say that there is an element of, in a weird sort of way, justice, like not in a good way, but like the Flyers got their season saved by an AHL caliber goalie. Like Leighton was very clearly playing over his head the entire year. And you're just hoping against hope that the regression didn't come this season. And then all of the regression happens at the worst possible time. Like, and like, so it was fair, despite the fact that it was unbelievably painful, because everyone knew that Michael Leighton was not a good goalie. Like everybody knew. It was just like, well, goalies get hot sometimes, and maybe we can be the team that rides this good luck. And they did, all the way to the final and all the way to game 6, until Michael Leighton truly turned back into a pumpkin at the worst possible time.
And you didn't exactly have like Dominic Hasek on the other side either in the Emmy. No. So it's like,
he wasn't playing well in the series.
Yeah, maybe, all right, Leighton
why
isn't
the Jeff Carter thing is so annoying.
Yeah, it is. It's like maybe Leighton isn't a strength, but at least this weakness isn't like totally outweighed on the other side by a dude who's just going to beat us. Like, it's not as if Antti Niemi won them that series, you know? So, but at the end of the day, Leighton did lose it. That's the most heartbreaking shit of all time. I hated watching that Jeff Carter shot again today. I was just, there's so much net. There's so much net. It's
your whole career you score these goals. This is your only job. This is why people like you. This is why I had to argue all the time. Oh, Jeff Carter's actually better than Mike Richards. No, fuck you. Mike Richards never would have missed that shot. Just saying.
No. Richards
would have taken it, but he never would have missed it if he took it.
There were like 2 straight icings against Chicago, and they're set up in the offensive zone. And it's Giroux, Richards, and Carter just owning the puck. They finally get it out front.
I have a lot of respect for you watching this again. I refuse to ever watch this again in this life. I will not watch it.
I was just like, because, like time, the order of events, like, I just want to make sure I'm not making shit up. Like, oh, Jeff Carter missed high and wide, and then Patrick Kane came down and scored. Like, that's not actually how it happened, even though that's basically what happened
high
in
and
my head.
Wide. Yeah, I always remember high and wide because Jeff Carter loved to shoot high and wide. So I'm always just like, fucking Jeff Carter high and wide again.
Oh, he didn't miss the net at least. He got it on. He got it on net. All right. I want to do super chats now, and then if there's time, we hit a couple more of these games. So Tyler, let's see the first super chat, if you would be so kind, from Eric Garner. He says, "Hey guys, love the show. Have to say I'm a little disappointed. Game 3 from 2012 didn't even make the honorable mentions yesterday, though. That was." I didn't want multiple games from that series. Like, I think games 1 and 3 both could have been on that list.
I would agree.
end of the day, Game 6 it's got the defining moment. You know, it's Giroux with the hit, Giroux with the goal. They finally beat the Penguins after losing to them in 08 and 09. It was like, oh, Richards and Carter couldn't beat these guys, but Giroux did. Like, I just think like Game 6 is what defined that series in that season. But yeah, like Game 3 was, if I wasn't going back to 1980 and could have done just like the 2000s or something, there's a really good chance 1, 3, and 6 are all on the list.
Yeah, that's fair.
That game was just a party. I wasn't there, but like watching it on television, it just looked like 20,000 people in a building having a big party.
We used to have so much fun.
It was Slapshot, man. It was barely hockey. It was the championship game in Slapshot where a bunch of dudes are fighting and then eventually like someone is declared the winner. And like it happened to be the Flyers that day. All right, let's get I think this is our second and final super chat from Linden 49. Leon Stickle, Nuff said, "Oh yeah, we didn't do the offsides against the Islanders. That's not one we got to."
Yeah.
I like that Linden 49 is our resident historian. I respect it a lot.
Yeah,
keeping us remembering the past.
Yeah, that's the 80 final against the Isles, and I guess they were offside. Yeah. It's a bummer. That should probably have made the list today. Let's see what else before we wrap up we can get to. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you very much to all of our diehards as well. Could not do the show without you. Couldn't do what we do here at PHLY without them diehards. This is one I really wanted to get to because I just have such burning memories of like coming back from somewhere, like my cousins or something, and listening to it on the radio. 2001 first round Game 6 against Buffalo. Flyers lose 8-0. If that's not bad enough, it's Chris Gratton, the star of the game. 2 goals and an assist. Cechmanek gave up 5 goals on 9 shots. And like, this is what I'm talking about the 04 kind of whitewashing that era. Like 2000, they blow the 3-1 lead. Lindros gets knocked out. And then 01, they lose to Buffalo 8-0 to get eliminated. 02 and 03, it's the 2 bad series against Ottawa. And 04 finally like is a palate cleanser, if nothing else. And it's why part of the reason we look back so fondly is like the era leading up to it. Really, everything after the 97 run is such not just a disappointment, but an embarrassment. Yeah,
this was rough, and I was a kid watching this game, and it was truly embarrassing. This was bad, and you're right. Those 3 seasons, they all ended very poorly, and I don't know if it got fans in the mentality of expecting the worst, but it didn't hurt. Like, it was definitely part of it.
There's a reason we are the way we are. It's not as if we're just a bunch of psychopaths. Like, no, we were made this way. Rewatching Dexter now, like
you wouldn't last a second in the asylum I was raised in, or whatever.
We're going Taylor Swift now.
Yeah. Okay. Is that what it's from? I didn't even know where it was from. I just saw it on the internet.
No, like these.
Yeah, it's a Taylor Swift lyric.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Is that what it is? I just thought it was a meme.
It is. No, it's a Taylor Swift lyric.
Yeah. So there's that.
Thanks, Taylor.
A couple of more recent ones. The Lake Tahoe game against Boston. That was the real like. All right, this whole thing we're doing is
messed up that they made them play that game.
Yeah. That was bad. That's on the NHL. This game was on the NHL.
Yes. They should not have been forced to play that game. They had Mark Friedman at forward. It was nonsense.
Mark Friedman and Sam Moran, who they'd converted to forward, but they had them both playing forward in that game because they were out of guys all with COVID.
It was nonsense. It was beautiful to look at, but they should not have been playing that game.
It was picturesque, but no, this game, I will not pin this on the Flyers. Like, they lost, and it was an embarrassing loss, and it was on national television, and it played into that whole, like, every time all the eyes are on the Flyers, they find a way to shit themselves. But this was on the NHL. This game should not have been played. It shouldn't.
No.
Just like pick your Rangers game from the last couple of years. Taking over Wells Fargo Center. Like, there's a whole bunch.
I want to go through the 2021 season because I've made it clear that like that January to May season was the low point of my time covering the team. Like, I have never been as miserable in my job as covering that season. It was awful. But that was like, these two games in my mind were the low point of that season, where on March 17th, they lose 9-0 to the Rangers. This is the game where the Myers Sanheim pairing, both players are -6. Awful, like truly embarrassing. And then you're like, okay, well, their schedule, this is the game where they have to play the same teams over and over again. So like, well, they're going to have to play the Rangers again, like next week. They played them on March 25th, which was 8 days later. And you're like, this is the perfect time for you to get some revenge. You know, this is the game where you get juiced up and you're like, now we gotta make them pay. So what do? They lose 8-3. A second straight embarrassment at the hands of the same team within 8 days. Like, I can't think of a better way to describe that season than those two games. Like, just sheer embarrassment where you're just like, this team, they just don't have the guts that you need. Like set aside talent. And I know that, like, at the time, and I wrote about this extensively during the run, like, the big problem was that they didn't have a goal, because Carter Hart was basically having a nervous breakdown, and Brian Elliott was old as shit and couldn't play as much as he needed to give Carter Hart the opportunity to have a reset, because he was going through a mental breakdown. So they didn't have a goaltender. But, like, also score some freaking goals, guys. Like, goon it up. Do something. Yeah, do something to show you care.
That's the thing. I know, like, we joke a lot about, like, the quote, like, I'd call them Brandon Manning fights. Like, Flyers losing 4-1 with 2 minutes left. Let's drop the gloves so I look like I care and can stay in the lineup. But, like, at a certain point, this is hockey, man. Do something. If you're, like, don't get beaten up and just accept it. Like, this is a sport where, like, you play on raw emotion. Show some. And they just had no, like, that's when it was over. Like, okay, so many things need to change. I like that you have the get someone fired games here, because there's so, like,
there's so many.
There's so many. And it's like, yeah, it's a culmination. No one gets fired because of one game, but they're games where you're like, you have to get fired now.
You have to get fired. Yeah, there are. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is the inciting moment. Like, if you were writing a script, you're like, this is the thing right here. This is the moment where something then happens. And they did. We have a 7-1 loss to Tampa in 2021 that gets AV fired. We have a 6-0 loss to Toronto that gets Hextall fired. A 5-1 loss to Vancouver that gets Hackstall fired. And that's my
this
favorite.
This one was so fun.
Swinging, baby. He went down fucking swinging. Laterra for Lindblom, and there was something else in this game.
There was the goalie thing where they like switched their starting goalie. Like, I think what it was that they were originally going to start Lyon. They put that out on social, and then they changed their mind and went with Stolarz for like the 5th straight game or something. And like, he was very obviously gassed, and then gives up like 3 goals in the first 5 minutes. And it's like, oh, okay, now we'll go to Lyon, who they should have started to begin with. It was a microcosm of Dave Hackstall's tenure in Philly, all jammed into one game. And I remember I made the joke, I think I even wrote this for The Athletic, that Hackstall died as he lived, benching better players for worse ones.
Yes. Yes.
And to think, like, 5-6 years later, the 2 goalies you just named have been like 2 of the 5 biggest goalie stories in the sport over the last 2 seasons.
Poor Charlie.
Oh, man.
Poor Charlie just went to a boring hockey team.
I will say, though, because if you remember that Hackstall game, there were rumors swirling that entire weekend that Hack was on the way out.
Yeah.
You know, this was the weekend where, in retrospect, it would have ended poorly regardless, but this is the weekend where there were heavy rumors. Dave Isaac reported that Joel Quenneville was hired as the coach, even though he wasn't. But like, I remember they were on a road trip when this happened.
Yeah.
And I did not go on the road trip. It was a Western Canada road trip. I wasn't on it. So this was the final game against the Canucks, the final game of the trip before they came home. And I was at a party at a friend's house, and it literally just ended up because all these people in the house were pretty much all Philly sports fans, all Flyers fans. And it ultimately just turned into like a big old, like, farewell to Hack. Everybody knew this was the final game. I think Hack knew it was the final game, or knew there was a good chance it was. And the fact that when we see the final lineup and we see that it's Laterra in and Lindblom scratch, it was just like nothing could have been more perfect.
The boys needed a jolt, Charlie, and they thought Laterra could provide it.
I bet he could have.
Yeah.
In some ways.
I just see this comment. We're going to wrap up in a second, but I just saw that comment that was like, I hated Hackstall. And like, yeah, I did too. Yeah, there it is from Flyers in 7. But like, I almost felt as if making him be his own interim after you fired Hextall.
That was funny.
In part because Hextall refused to fire Hackstall, and then keeping Hackstall around for 2 more weeks or something. I almost
think it was 3 weeks, I think. Yeah,
I almost found it cruel.
It was mean. They needed to just clean house, and they refused to.
Yeah. And then they did it anyway. 3 weeks. It was he's his own interim coach, and everyone knows it. He's getting fired, and they just. Maybe they were in negotiations with other guys, like they said, and it just fell through. And that's when it was Scott Gordon became the coach. It was man, what a time. The only other game I want to mention is the shush game. We've talked about it a lot of times between Broad Street Hockey and here. Don't think we have to get into it, but it was it was a suggestion on Twitter. The shush game.
How's the Pronger game not on this list?
Someone did suggest that as well. I just don't like. It was against the Leafs, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was unremarkable otherwise.
Yeah. But. I remember that and him just screaming, but I don't remember the game or anything.
No, it was not a remarkable game otherwise. It just ruined all of our lives.
I think that's it, guys. I think we have. I hope people.
It was a good time.
I don't know if
it was cathartic.
I liked it.
We're exercising some demons here. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
Some guys, as always.
They're not all winner ideas. I thought this would be a lot more fun than it was. I'm just honestly mad now. No, it was a good time.
Maybe I'm a sick person.
That is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers today. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. If you haven't already, you got to hit that subscribe button. Follow us right here on YouTube. Make sure to set those reminders so you never miss a live show. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers and PHLY Flyers wherever you get your podcasts. I hope everyone enjoys their weekend. We will be back with you on Monday. Until then, my name is Bill Matz. That's Charlie O'Connor. That's Kelly Hinkle. Stay loose and sexy, Philly.
Thanks, everybody.
We all silly like the